Hello, this is Lisa LeRose here on Connect to Love on PRN FM, and I'm joined today by the wonderful Michael J. Russ, who is near and dear to me, always in my heart, even though we are miles and miles apart. So I just want to welcome Michael. How are you today,
Thank
Michael?
You. Awesome. I'm actually feeling very good today, very creative today, and it's always fun for me when I learn something new. And it's really interesting because we were talking about, in our last show, we were talking about the bits of wisdom and kindness, Annie Brooke the Whale Tale, and the Wisdom Keeper, actually. That's well, we were talking about that, and the bits of paper that we pick up along our path. And it just occurred to me, as we were talking prior to the show, that my piece of paper was new knowledge that would allow me to expand what I do, you see. It's interesting because I don't normally think in those terms. To me, it's just a function of me jumping into something new and learning a new skill, something I've always wanted to do, but kind of had to think about it for a long time and what I wanted to do with it. Just learning a new skill is great. However, it's better when you actually know what you want to do with that new skill, and then you can then jump into it. Otherwise, you're just learning something and then you're going on to something else without applying what you've learned. And I think it's always important to apply what you've learned to weave it into your existence. So that it benefits your life in a huge way. Yeah, so there's some change that happens in your life, some evolution, which is always the thing. So that is something that I am always interested in doing. And I spoke a little bit also about the concept of fulfillment. And I guess I could say that some of the pieces of paper that I pick up on the way are things that fulfill me. It's what's interesting, and I talked about the fact that what I've been doing as a career for 38 years doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's just a continuation. And if I simply focused on the continuation, I can get up from my desk and I can leave for a week. And I can come back and I can sit down at my desk. The paper's all in the same place. I just pick up where I left off. And I have to do some reading.
In my next life, I'm going to be you.
Yeah, I have to do some reading.
Were my world.
We always choose our beds that we have to lay in,
Right.
It's what's interesting about it is that can be, although you might see it as something really fantastic. There's the joy and fulfillment. There are small successes that happen along the way, but those successes are not the kind of successes that I attach myself to. The kind of successes that I view as being invaluable to me are those that happen to do with some form of connection. And in this particular case, I have been wanting to take what I have, and my books and my audiobooks and my podcast and all these things that I see as tools for enlightenment that can help people evolve beyond where they are, elevate their frequencies. It's something very, very simple. In my view, we all have this gift we've all been given the gift to manage and control our frequencies. And what I find is, through my experience and by observation, is that people are not using this power, using the gift that they were given, the gifts of sovereignty and the ability to practice personal alchemy. These are the tools we have that can enable us to do that. So for me, people ask, how come you're so happy all the time? You're always so energetic. It's because I, with intention and purpose, make sure that I'm engaging little things that bring me a sense of fulfillment all the time. If I wake up in the morning and I go to the barn. There's a sense of fulfillment I have from cleaning the stalls, and I look at it, and it's done for the day, and I come back with my girlfriend, and it's fine. Last Sunday, I left. We cleaned the barn. I came home, and then an hour later, I got back in the truck and drove up and took out the weed eater and did the entire arena, and then I drugged the arena, and so I like the way it looked. I have a sense of fulfillment. I could frame it. Boom, there it is. It's absolutely so beautiful. Fixed a few boards, fence boards, things of that nature. The sense of fulfillment is awesome. And the beauty of having a sense of fulfillment is the energy and frequency it generates. And that energy and frequency can carry you through the day. And when you kind of level different kinds of fulfillment from different things, I might come home and vacuum the house, or make sure that the kitchen is pristine, or actually on Sunday as well, I weed-eated the entire back flower bed and got it ready to put a bed of pine straw down on, and pulled some torpedo grass. It looks great, right? So you have this sense of fulfillment that happens in different levels, and it's kind of like layering awesome frequencies to the point where it doesn't matter what happens during the day, what goes on. Things aren't always going to go right. However, when you purposely put yourself at a higher frequency through the sense of fulfillment that you get from doing little projects that have a beginning and an end, and that, it's just, you feel awesome because you did it with your hands, your intuition, your creativity. You were inspired to do it the way that you wanted to do it. There's nobody else telling you how to do it. That sense of fulfillment, layered fulfillment, can really, really generate the kind of frequencies that can carry you through anything. And that's what I love to do. And I share this with people because we live in a world today that is mainly dominated by lots of drama, lots of events that are really, in my view, and this is because I see Earth as a class and a laboratory, these events are not random. Things don't happen by accident, to me, in my view, in this world, and I'm sure you feel the same way. They represent opportunities for us to manage our frequency, to manage our way through what's going on. We don't have to adopt them as our own. We don't have to label them or judge them as good, bad, or ugly. They are things that occur. There are people in many ways that get hurt, people who pass on as a result. That has nothing to do with us, especially when we're 5,000 miles away from where it's happened. We cannot adopt it as our own. It's not all we can do, really, and this is what I encourage people to do, is to send love and light to people who have been affected by anything, whether it's massive famine in Africa or India or anywhere else. You can fill the entire country in your mind. You can cover the country with love and light. Can one person make an impact? Absolutely. That is my view. I'm making an impact by doing that purposeful thing. Do you agree?
100%. It's interesting to listen to you, Michael, because I think about so many times. Last week we talked about the Pawnee and what Uncle Frank Davis, the Pawnee elder, the wisdom that his mother had imparted on him about the messages we receive along the way. And one of the scraps of paper from many years ago, which is in alignment with what you were just speaking about, really literally showed itself to me the next morning after we had spoken, and really brought forth the wisdom. And I had been out on my front porch. The raccoons got into the garbage, and I was cleaning it up, and I reached in to grab something, and there was a swarm of wasps, and they attacked my right hand, which I'm right-handed, and they bit me on the back. And I mean, it was lots of different explicatives, and and so My hands swelled up to about the size of a boxing glove, and it actually sent me to the urgent care for some antibiotics the next day because it got infected. But one of the little scraps of paper many years ago, a friend of mine had given me a deck of totem cards and animal wisdom. There's 2 books by Ted Andrews, who was always one of my favorite speakers. He looked at the signs that we get in nature, and he believed that each one of us has a totem or a spirit animal, or when you have something like the wasp sting, that there's something that you need to pay attention to. So I looked up what a wasp totem was, and it says the wasp present in your life means you need to take a critical look at your priorities. Be certain the pursuits that you have, you need to prioritize. Ensure you choose the right battles to fight. It's futile to engage in wars that you are not certain of winning. The wasp spirit comes into your life as a wake-up call. It asks you to refocus your energies on the right ventures. You can go far in life, however, this will only happen when you choose the right path to spiritual enlightenment. The wasp spirit totem bears the meaning of humility, which when you have a hand that looks like a boxing glove, you're very humble. But it says it pegs your success on your willingness to be humble. The simple act of humility will open doors no matter that you never even knew existed. These will be the avenues to your prosperity. So, and then, it talks, and I've heard a lot of different things over the years. Different people look at that energy, that spirit, that totem. A lot of it is a fortuitous thing. They also say that it brings in love and truth and action to refocus in the right direction. So when you're saying that, what is the direction you're taking in life? Where is your progress? What is it that you want to do? So for you, you've identified that. You didn't have to have a wasp sting to get you to pay attention. You said, okay, you know what? I can refocus my energy. I can take the right action I know that I need in my life to have some completion. You appreciate your strength, you look at your vulnerabilities, and, you build on that. And, so, it's an interesting thing. And I've always, for me, hawks have always been really symbolic. I just, when I see them, I just, there's something about their energy that really speaks to me. There have been other animals in that. When my friend gifted me with the Ted Andrews deck of cards, the first card that I ever pulled out, which I gasped when I pulled it out, it was the vulture. And it was the turkey vulture, and it was all about life, death, and then rebirth. So it actually, even though it seemed like a really horrible totem you're going to be pulling out of a deck of cards, it actually is about exactly what you're talking about: alchemy, transformation. You were in this particular persona, and you know that you need to let go of the old so that you can be reborn into something new. And I think it's always very nice to be able to look at that, and I think that was what was so wonderful about having Joseph Higgins on, because he taught us to really examine some of the signs that we receive in our lives. So for you, when you started getting this gift of, okay, I need to have completion, was there something that, was there an epiphany? What was it that made you sort of rework what it was that you were doing?
Actually, I've been doing it for about 50 years. I have been engaging. I don't know if there was any particular epiphany, because that was a long time ago and many lifetimes, based on a number of places I've lived in my life. But what I discovered about myself at some point was that I enjoyed somehow I discovered the feeling I got from a sense of completion. And that feeling was something that I remembered. And back when I was a kid, I used to put together models, airplanes, cars, as many kids did who were my age. There were no video games, so you actually went and bought models and you put them together. They had many pieces, and you ended up painting them and either putting them on a shelf, or in my case, every once in a while we'd put an M80 in them and blow them to Kingdom Come, which was, it sort of send them back to whence they came in many pieces. However, that was about as mischievous as I got. Yeah, it is hilarious. When I tell people that, they go, "You did what?" Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I think that's also what I love about music. My mother had the wisdom to, when I was 7 years of age and I was beating rhythms on furniture around the house and driving her crazy. She said, "I'm taking you to the Officers Club drummer." And back in the day, my dad was an officer, and the Officers Club was actually a supper club. It actually had a ballroom dance floor, a bandstand, and it had a leveled terraced tables where you actually ate dinner and you listened to a big band. Interestingly enough, all that went away, but this was the 60s, the mid-60s, and they had an orchestra. Took me down to the gentleman and said he needs drum lessons. And I discovered at that particular point in my life that I had a knack and intuition for playing music, for playing drums. And I still do play drums, and whenever I get a chance to sit in with people who don't know me, I love it. I've talked about that on my own podcast. And it challenges me, and there is a beginning and an end to a song. So that brings me a deep sense of satisfaction to be able to apply one of my innate gifts in that way. However, I'm going to tell you two things about what you just said. First is, I'm sorry you got bitten by wasps.
Well, thank you.
I've been there. I was bitten last year when I, on the barn, I was at the barn. I walked underneath with a weed eater. I walked around a building and happened to be 2 feet from this nest that was probably 3 inches in diameter.
Oh my goodness.
As an African American man, you never want to be 2 feet from a wasp's nest, because what people don't understand about wasps and flies is that they see shadow. They see it's a prism. They see they engage with life through a prism. So they see light and dark, and they don't fly at night because they can't see, because it's too dark. In the daytime, they see shadows and sense in that way. And so as an African-American man, 2 feet from it's summer, I'm 2 feet from a nest. I am the darkest thing that they can see. And guess what? I am a threat to the nest. So I got stung a couple of times. Oh, man, they got vicious. I didn't do anything to them. I guess the noise might have bothered them. However, I got bitten twice there, once on the hand, once on the back of the shoulder, and once on the arm. And I immediately, just for our guests, what I do is I came home and I do what I do for yellow fly bites, which is I put a hot paper towel, wet a hot paper towel, put it in the microwave, and get it as hot as I can, and I apply it to the bite, the sting, as quickly as possible. And if that's an hour from now, fine. But that's what I do. I did it when I got a scorpion bite, a small scorpion bite. No big deal. It's interesting because it does work to help bring some of the venom out. When you get stung multiple times like yourself, there are people who have reactions, and you should definitely go to urgent care and get that taken care of, not try to handle it yourself. And you did just that, and it's wonderful. And just 2 days ago, I put a broken stand-up heater that we've had sitting outside. We had 2 stand-up heaters that blew over in a storm and broke, no longer applicable. And I put both of them on top of some old carpet we took out of the house. We had some flooring put down. I put them in the back of a truck. And what I didn't notice, and this is really interesting how lucky I actually was, I had just put the second one on top of the back of the truck. Now, these things are heavy, so I had to kind of do a leaning, leveling thing, kind of get on the back of the truck and leverage them up. And then it took some time. It wasn't just, go put it there. It took some time.
Mm-hmm.
Soon as I got the second one there, I walked away. I was about 10 feet away, and I noticed 4 wasps flying around. And I said, oh, my gosh. I discovered that in the top of the heater, some wasps had been crawling through the hole and made a little nest.
Wow.
And
You're
I'm
lucky.
like, oh, my gosh. I was super lucky because my head was, a couple of feet away from this thing. And if I rolled it. I literally rolled this thing. I made so much racket and vibration. These things could have come out at any given time. And I said, thank you very much, my angels, because I did not want to get, bitten again. So what I did was I took a broomstick and I smacked it to tick them off because I knew I was going to drive away, and I wanted to leave them here because I had to unload them at the barn, at the dump. And so, long story short, I was able to get rid of them, and they left the nest. Luckily, it was daytime where most of them were out of the nest anyway, going and foraging for what they need to increase the size of the nest. No problem. Second story, you'll love this one, and because I'm going to want to find out what Ted Andrews has to say about bald eagles, because I was sitting in the backyard. We have 4 bald eagles within a mile of me, and I live on a golf course, and I'm sitting in the backyard with Sandy. This was a couple of years ago, and actually probably I think it was last summer, last spring, not this year, but the year before. And we're sitting outside and listening to an audiobook, and all of a sudden I hear a thump, loud enough thump. We both turned around, and a bald eagle we have osprey here too. Osprey go into the golf course lake to get fish, and then they fly away and eat them at the nest. There's a couple of osprey nests here within a mile as well. The osprey had flown over our yard. The bald eagle, being a predator, came down from gosh knows where in the sky, because they can go up as far as 500 feet and see, and smacked, broadsided the other bird, the osprey, knocked what must have been a 9-inch fish out of its talons. The fish hit the ground. We heard the bald eagle hit the bird broadside, knocked the fish out of its talons. It fell into the yard. It was wiggling, still alive. And the bald eagle proceeded to fly around our yard for about the next 5 minutes at about 25 feet. Just kind of circle around.
Incredible.
It was a beautiful bird. I have it on video. He was here that long, flying around. And I think we didn't have we were so dumbfounded by this beautiful bird that we didn't go inside, which is what we should have done, so that it could have gotten the fish. But sooner or later it gave up, and it started spiraling up, and it went all the way up to, my gosh, hundreds of feet in the air. And I guess it was going to get different prey. However, I don't think in my lifetime I'll have another experience that close with a beautiful, majestic bald eagle. It was beautiful. It was, big and gorgeous. And we tell people that story, and they're like, wow. And they do that. And it's just so interesting. So I'm really interested to hear what we'll maybe on the next show we'll talk about what that means in terms of having that particular bird in your presence. Turkey buzzards, they're everywhere, but that particular bird was beautiful.
Yeah, some of it has to do with your vision taking flight, which would make a lot of sense for what you're getting ready to embark on, and sort of all the things that you share with everybody. I think that they were very revered by the Native Americans, and I think they still are honored as a great spirit.
I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's
and
interesting because I do have an Indian spirit.
Fascinated that you had wasps show up in your life too, because one of the things about wasps is that they're very well organized and they're focused.
Yeah.
And so part of what their thing is about building. So if you have a project or plans that you're getting ready to launch, and it's a sign that it's ready to go. And it was interesting that I got inoculated this time and you didn't, but I'm glad that you didn't. I was looking at sort of like almost like an initiation, Yeah.
You don't. Yeah, since I had one bite me in the neck when I was back in California, I learned something. It's that one of those little pieces of paper I picked up. I learned a lesson. It was there.
Well, and you also shared.
Never spray a wasp's nest in the daytime.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
And you wouldn't believe how many people just don't know that. It's like, do not mess with a wasp's nest in the daytime. They're not all there. Number one, if you're going to take care of the nest, you must do it at night when you're not going to get when they're not going to get ticked off at you and come after you. But that is beautiful. That is so unique. We have a lot of wasp nests around here, a lot, and mud wasps.
I mean, and they're all, they all have their important parts in nature, and you try to respect things. And I, like you, I had some different remedies. I think that it was just too many stings for my system, which is why I ended up going the next day. I needed to discern the wisdom of when, I need to have a little bit of extra help, So I didn't want to go into having too much distress that I didn't need to, or discomfort. So
I believe
and we were talking earlier about some of the things that you pick up along the way. And many years ago, a friend of mine, and she's from Australia, had gifted me with a book by a woman named Florence Scovel Shinn, and the book was called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And Florence used to treat people, not unlike you do, that had not physical ailments, but challenges in their life. People would come to her, and she would teach them to see things differently. And one of the things that, she truly believed was that everything was accessible to her. All you had to do was to ask. And, she, one of the favorite things that I keep on my desk was unexpected doors fly open, unexpected channels are free, and endless avalanches of abundance are poured upon me under the grace in perfect ways. Because in her world, everything was perfect. And so me being inoculated by that wasp, there was a wisdom in it, and there was a reason for it.
Perfection.
And I truly do believe that. I truly do believe that, And
interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the things. Go ahead, Michael. What were you going to say?
No. Go ahead, please. No, go ahead. One of the things.
Well, one of the things. So she was in what they would consider sort of she would look at the different spiritual laws of nature and of life, and sometimes when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I have actually a collection of books by her. The one of them was The Word Is Your Wand, the Power of the Spoken Word, and in addition to The Game of Life. And it's about choosing the words and the languaging and the things that really make you harmonious, happy, and drawing in more of what you want in your life. And I think you're very, very good at that. You choose your words carefully. You're powerful. You're poised. You look towards the reasons for things, and then you sort of approach things that no matter how impossible something looks, that you can accomplish it. And I really applaud you for that.
Yeah, I thank you for that so much. It's amazing. One of the beautiful things about Florence Scovel Shinn is the way she approached life And I have encouraged, and it's interesting that you just brought this up, because I'm looking here at the chapter 1 of The Game of Life and How to Play It, and she says the game most people consider life, most people consider life a battle, but it's not a battle. It is a game. And it's a game, however, which cannot be played successfully without the knowledge of spiritual law and the like. And it's really interesting because I have encouraged people to see life as a game. A game is played in the 5 inches between your ears. Things happen. Everything's happening outside of you and around you, and you can become overwhelmed by it if you invest in it. You invest too much of your emotional capital, your time and energy, focus and attention into it when it doesn't really require it. We perceive things as we perceive investments in things to be necessary when they really aren't. And for me, the idea of managing your own emotional capital, your mind, your body, and your spirit, managing those along with your time and energy and the like, that's how you successfully play the game of life, is to be positive, live with love and compassion and empathy and kindness. You can approach every issue with that. There's no reason to really stoop to spending a lot of time in lower frequency energies because they really, in the end, don't serve you. And what they're self-depleting. Your energy is there. You have a boundless supply of it. However, it's where you direct it that makes a difference. You can. There was a quote that one of my friends put out, and I'm going to paraphrase it on social media a couple of days ago, which was something along the lines of I can think about the world and I can decide to choose to have an impact on the world or an impact on myself that day. And I thought that was really kind of interesting because to me it wasn't a choice. It's not a choice. And my response to her was, when you have an impact on yourself, when you focus on yourself that day, you are in effect automatically having an impact on the world, because it all starts within us. So it's the whole situation where, and this is the dilemma that most people find them in, which I found this to be so interesting, is that we don't live in a world where there's a dichotomy between what's going on outside of us and what's going on inside of us. We create that reality, how we feel about it, what we think about it. That's how we create our beliefs about it. That creates our reality on a daily basis. So it's by focusing on ourselves, our own energies, our own frequencies, making sure that they're operating in higher levels of love and kindness and empathy, compassion and hope and optimism, fulfillment and joy. When we do that, we are automatically, through our frequencies being projected out to the world, impacting the world in a positive way. There is no choice. When we do that, we're automatically taking care of the world. And you get millions of people operating that way, and the world changes, because then we have a new layer of spiritual understanding that is applied to what's going on in the world. And that's where I come from. That's where I see it. And Florence Scovel Shinn, seeing this as a game and not a battle, it fits right into that narrative, because that seeing the world seeing life as a battle, seeing it as a fight and a struggle, that's a mindset and a perception that continually has you investing your emotional capital, all your energy and time and focus, your spiritual presence into something that is operating into frequencies that are below the neutral line, that are contractive frequencies. You're not adding something to the world. You're taking something from the world. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, 100%.
that's where it is. And I think it's just a way we focus. You can thrive. You can choose to thrive within any environment. The battle is a perception. Shift that perception from battle and fight and struggle to thrive. Then you shift your energies and focus to something that has intention, purpose, momentum, moving in a direction that is actually benefiting you and elevating you versus taking you down. To me, that's what the battle is, and I love it. I love her. I love her take on it because, and I've heard that said by a couple of other people. Funny, of late in the last couple of weeks, there was a Brian Scott. Yeah, Brian Scott. There was a channeling that he did from Quo, who, believe it or not, said life is a game. Life is a game. That's the way to see it. And to me, you can either see it as a game, you can see life as a classroom, as a laboratory, whatever. It's something that you have complete and total control over how you perceive the game. And in doing that, it gives you what we're all kind of looking for is a sense of control in a world of uncontrollable things. Things just seem to happen. And people say, oh, how's that happen? How's this happen? Why does this keep happening? Why does that keep happening? You can get caught up in that, or you can control your thoughts, your feelings about it, your inner conversations about it, your relationship to it. You have control over that. Not what happens, but how you think about it, how you feel about it. You have control over all of that and how you respond to it. And it's just a function of responding to it in a positive way that keeps your higher frequencies flowing versus not.
Right. Well, I think when you speak positive words, they're words that really dissolve obstacles and barriers. And when you have, there's a million can'ts or shouldn'ts or won'ts or, whatever it is. But for me, I've always been the eternal optimist. I try to find the ways around it. And one of the things that she wrote about in her book, which always made me smile, was about Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. She said because, Alibaba had a secret hiding place where it was behind rocks in the mountains, and there was just a magic word, a secret word that was open sesame, right? And when you said that, the rock slid apart. Easily, you could try to push it no matter what, it wouldn't come apart. And then what she said was that when you realize what that story really talks about, it's you are your own rocks and your own barriers. You just need to find the right words to open them up. And I love that. I do for any, and I'm really, I guess, very stubborn in my optimism. If somebody tells me you that'll never work or you can't do that, I just will not be dissuaded. I've become more determined. I dig in my heels. I'm like, no, you know what? We're going to figure this out. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to figure this out. And I have a project I'm working on right now, and building materials are expensive right now, and I was just at lunch with a friend of mine who purchased a house, a beautiful house. It was originally built in the 1800s, and right before he was ready to close, a huge storm came and a big tree fell on the house and literally completely almost destroyed the whole house. And so the owner, the insurance company, came back and said, well, you have two options. You can walk away, or we'll pay the owner the amount and we'll take that off the sales price. And he chose to do that. So now the house is just not structurally sound. And we were talking, and he was saying, I said, well, he's got to demolish it. And I said, well, what about the kitchen? What's going on with the kitchen? And he said, well, I'm just getting rid of everything. And I said, well, I'd love to buy your kitchen cabinets from you. He said, you can have them. He said, I'll unlock the door. You go in and you can take whatever you want out of the house, and which to me is like an open treasure chest. It's like that open sesame, Michael, because now I have building materials. do I need everything out of his house? No, I don't, but it would just be landfilled, and I love to reuse things, and especially from a house that was built in the 1800s. So I'll let you know. I'll keep our audience posted as to what
they were built
treasures
differently
await
in those
me in
days.
that cave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting. What never ceases to amaze me is how quickly many people I see around here are so quick to throw things away. And the one thing I always ask myself is, can someone use this? Is there someone who can use this? And I have a whole bunch of. I finally went through my closet and pulled out a bunch of clothes that no longer fit. That my girlfriend's been bugging me to go through there, and that's another one of those fulfillment projects. I went through and I grabbed a bunch of stuff one morning, and it's sitting in a pile. As soon as the rain stops, I'm going to put it in a plastic bag and take it over to Goodwill, which is simply across the street. I can understand if something is in disrepair, and if it can be scrapped as metal, the dump has a metal scrapping, scrap metal recycling, that sort of thing. You can do that. What's interesting is about what you said is that when you set the intention to do something, or you have your little mental wish list, you put that out to the universe. It can come back in a myriad of different ways, and in ways that wish can be fulfilled for you in divine time. The most magical things happen, and again, I think it's wonderful to go through life when things occur, knowing in your heart that there are no accidents and no coincidences. That and people will be so quick to just brush that over as a coincidence or some sort of serendipity. However, words have magic. They have energy, and that energy goes out and propagates. And you have to have that mindset in order for it to occur. And what Joe would more than likely say right now, if he were with us, is Joe Higgins, is that when people pass, our own thoughts, our own belief system, in many cases, keeps us from connecting with our loved ones who are so desperately trying to connect with us. It's just we don't believe it. We don't have a belief system that will embrace the fact that someone in the beyond who's just passed over is desperately attempting to let us know that they're okay. And we have to have an open mind and a belief system, and we have to make sure our emotions don't play such a huge part in controlling our lives to the point where doors that would otherwise open easily, as a la open sesame, remain closed. And we see them as obstacles, and they're really not. There is no obstacle. It's just a function of our own. Again, the 5 inches between our ears is preventing us from experiencing a life that we dream about, that we truly and rightfully deserve in this, to experience. It's right there. It's beautiful. I love it. I like to know, by the way, here's the interesting thing. I've met 2 amazing Finnish carpenters that can take any cabinets from any kitchen and put them in any home.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I'm sure you know some people. I saw a guy take stock cabinets that were the right size in many cases, but not necessarily configured to our kitchen. Come in here in 2 days, turn those stock cabinets into exactly what we had that was by a custom cabinet maker 10 years earlier.
That's
unbelievable.
fantastic.
Actually, even better. This guy was a genius. And I'm like, and he had his son with him, and he's teaching his son the craft because his father taught him.
Oh, wow.
And
that's beautiful.
I'm sitting, bravo. I said, bravo. And his son really was interested in that. That's conversation for another show. However, one of my biggest pet peeves in life is that people don't allow, our society doesn't have an outlet to help people discover what gifts they have and talents they have. in the art. Yeah, not. I mean, it's all about it. This isn't gonna help you, make a living. So don't even do that. Don't do that. And you're like,
right.
What does it have to do with that? It has. When I sit down and play the drums, I feel good, and I can channel that energy and that feeling into anything else I do. And I encourage our listeners to go back and think about the last time you felt really good about doing something, and take that energy and channel it into something when you have a challenge in your life. There's more that you can do. How did you intuit your way through that is? I call it Jimmy jacking, by the way. It's not my term, but it was so cool from Amelia Earhart. Remember that? Amelia Earhart used that term in Night at the Museum, the Smithsonian. And I said, I heard that before, but she's just, I am constantly, sitting back, saying you'll have a problem and something needs to be done, and I'll just, let me think about it for a moment. I'll find a way to Jimmy jack that for you. And I do. I figure out a way to fix something without, in a very creative way. And I just love it. I'm like, angels, help me Jimmy jack this thing. I'm just going to sit back and give it some time and let it bounce around my head. You'll love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I have an angel story for you, Michael. So my brother went to the ER on the 4th of July, and prior to picking him up to take him to the ER, I was cleaning a house, and I found we had left behind a Wilson tennis ball. It was a brand new Wilson tennis ball. I didn't think anything of it, so I pop it in my purse, right? I take my brother to the ER. We go through the intake. We go into the back, and I'm sitting with him. And the nurse that came in was a young gentleman, and his name on his name tag was Wilson. And I thought, geez, that's interesting. I got a Wilson tennis ball in my purse with me, and this gentleman's name is Wilson. So I was chatting with him. Didn't really think too much of it. Left the hospital around 7:30. My brother was admitted, and the next day, somebody checked out of my Airbnb, and they signed my guest book, and their dog's name was Willie. And I thought, that's
Willie?
Pretty interesting. Willie Wilson. So there was 3 incidences, and so I happened to say something over at dinner, and I said, this might just be a coincidence, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. Well, that next day I heard, after I left you, I saw somebody in a Wilson t-shirt, saw a basketball commercial for Wilson basketball, 2 Wilsons on TV characters. I think one was on Home Improvement, so I'm not sure what the other one was. And could that just be a coincidence? So we had Scott Robinson on with us a few episodes ago. And I asked Scott, and I said, what do you think about this? I shared with him the exact series of events. And he said, well, sometimes it's just to get you to pay attention. I said, okay. It didn't have any significance to me, but I was going with the flow. So a few days later, I called my mom's brother just to let him know about my own brother. And, shared some different things. And I said, out of the blue, I just said, I just want to tell you about the strangest thing with this Wilson. And I relayed the story with him. And I said, I know you probably think I'm silly. And he said, well, no, actually not. He said, it has meaning to me. And I said, really? I said, and he said, but Wilson isn't spelled the same way. It's spelled Willsun. He said it was an angel that came to me many years ago, and I have been connected to. And when I heard your brother was undergoing some challenges, I asked this angel to intervene. And I just caught my breath, and I, obviously there was nothing that spelled Willsun in my universe that would be pretty prominent or get me to pay attention. But and I still get shivers when I think about it. But so sometimes when you have incidences like that, it may not have significance to you, but it's just in trusting and sharing with somebody else that you can really understand that wisdom, and to know that there is a bigger power out there watching over us and caring for us, and that we do, have to have that faith, that Florence Scovel Shinn, spoke about and wrote about. And, one of the things, she always, talked about, that was one of the things, that our lives were divinely designed, and that things come to pass, and that we are where we are supposed to be because we're, fully equipped for every situation. And I think, it was just a really profound reminder of that. And I was grateful that the mystery was solved. As the Pink Panther Peter Sellers used to say, the case is solved. And so my mystery was solved, and it brought me a lot of peace and a lot of just trust and knowing that we're all cared for at a very deep level. And
that is so true. That is so true. Beautiful. We are equipped to handle anything, and even though life didn't come with an instruction book, there are many pieces of paper along the way that you can pick up and learn how to actually be a positive participant in it. It just takes a lot of awareness to remain cognizant that you have that ability. And I know on my Life Moves podcast and on this one, Connect to Love, the Love podcast that we produce from the show, that's what we attempt to communicate every single week. You don't have to be resigned to your circumstances. You can. I always think about Nelson Mandela, which is interesting. I'll kind of leave with this. Nelson Mandela, 27 years in a prison cell. That was, I think, 6 by 6, something like that. Don't quote me on that. However, he never blamed his captors. He didn't make himself out to be a victim. He found a way to thrive in his circumstances. And when he was let out 27 years later, he didn't have a vindictive bone in his body. And what I believe was said about him was that he realized that anger and hate would eat him from the inside out, would destroy him from the inside out. And we all have to remind ourselves that when we operate for very long periods from lower frequencies of jealousy and envy and hate and anger and fear and frustration and worry, anxiety and non-clinical depression, despair, so to speak, we are not doing ourselves any favor. We're not doing our health any favor at all. It manifests in a negative way, not only in ourselves, but in our lives and in the people around us. And that's what we attract to ourselves, circumstances that continually validate our own what we're thinking, our own thinking. And we have a choice about what we think, and we can choose to change our thinking. And in changing our thinking, we can, in effect, change our outer world. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I think about that all the time. I want to use that example all the time to people. What if you had to spend 27 years in a 6 by 6 cell and you didn't get to see anyone? You didn't get to see relatives or anything else. And what do you think that would do with you? Well, you'd have to really strengthen your mind. You'd have to shift your perceptions about your circumstances. And that's what we have to do every single day, because we're faced with things that in many cases are not the most pleasant, yet we have to shift our perceptions about them in order to move forward with our lives and continue our own evolution. Pick up some more pieces of paper to get us from point A to point Z. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, and so it is. I'm so grateful to each one of you for tuning into us here at Connect to Love. And also please do check out Michael's podcast, the Life Moves podcast, and also the Angel Life Journals. I have my one for Courage and Strength, the Journal of Courage and Strength. They're available on Amazon. And I would encourage everybody to there's just so much love and wisdom that went into each one of them. And I'm very grateful to you, Michael. So, thank you for that. And, and thank you all for joining us here on PRN FM. And as you said, Michael, each one of us is a joy and a wonder and a gift to this world. And, be harmonious, happy, shine. And you deserve everything that, all the good that life offers. And just,
absolutely,
in your heart, drop into your heart and connect to love. So,
believe it.
Thank you.
Believe it.
Yeah. And so
till next time.
Till next time. Bye-bye.
Take care of yourself. Be well.